Hi, this video will talk about market supply curves. First, let's remind ourselves what an individual competitive firm's supply curve looks like. So, an individual competitive firm's supply curve is its marginal cost curve. And to be more precise, in the short run, it's the portion of the marginal cost curve that lies above ABC. Now, let's transition from an individual firm to the market supply. What is the market supply? Market supply is simply all of your individual firms. So here is our definition of a market supply curve. In the short run, you've got a fixed number of firms. Call it N is our number of firms. And let's suppose that all these firms are the exact same or identical firms, and they all have the exact same cost structure. It looks just like this. At $5, this firm supplies 50. If you had one firm. If you have two firms would each supply 50 at $5. So the market would be adding those up, or 100. So back here to our market supply. Let big Q represent the market. Let little q be the firm. However many firms you have, N, multiply that by your individual firm output to determine the market supply. So it sounds really complicated and confusing. Let's go to a graph to illustrate this. So we're going to use on the left side the firm total, individual firm, and on the right side is going to be the market total, or the sum of all our firms. Let's suppose we're a lime firm producing lime, and we have 5 of these lime firms. All look the same, all have this exact same cost structure. So if we had just a single firm, a monopolist, supplied the market, so one firm, that would mean the firm is the market. So in this market graph, at $5, for example, 50 is supplied. If there's one firm, 50 is supplied. And if the price were $6, this one firm makes $140. At $6, this one firm makes, that's $140 there. But now we have maybe 2 firms that are identical. So what's the market supply going to look like? It's going to look a little bit flatter if there are 2 firms. So instead of one firm making 50 at $5, now we've got 2 firms making 50. So here's 100 on our graph. But now let's do all 5 of them together. So again, at $5, all 5 firms are open. All 5 firms make 50. And so our market supply is this darkest red curve right here. That's the supply that corresponds to $5. In a similar fashion, we can find the market supply when the price is 6. You've got 140 being made by the first firm, 140, 140, 140, 140, 140, 700, 5 times 140, 700. That's the market supply. Note how the market supply, which we abbreviate just as S, the market supply, is getting flatter as more firms enter. So that's the takeaway here. As more firms enter, you can add their quantities up. As more firms enter, this supply curve goes from being relatively steep when we had just a single firm to getting flatter as more firms enter. So in the case where firms have identical cost, as you grow your number of firms, the supply curve approaches a horizontal line, with the minimum point being on the ABC curve. So more identical firms produce for a given price, the flatter or more elastic the market supply curve is at that price. So that's if you had identical firms. What if firms aren't identical? What if firms have different cost structures? So we had that initial supply curve where at $5 a firm produces 50. But you have another firm that's a higher cost structure. At $5 they don't produce anything. They only jump into the market when the price reaches 6. They enter. Okay? Larry the lazy lime firm enters when the price is 6 and supplies 25 when the price is 6. So our market supply, what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to be the same as the first supply curve for that individual firm. But note this kink. This kink says, hey, we got ourselves a different cost structure when there's a kink. And this is a firm that doesn't have identical cost. So at 6, bam, we get 25 more being supplied right here by this other firm, the second firm that I've called Larry. So here's the additional 25 that happened, and then that makes this horizontal. And then Larry continues to supply, and this first firm continues to supply. So now the curve is has this flatter slope. Okay, but the kink indicates a different cost structure. So there's no kink here because they all have identical costs. There is the kink here because they're different cost structure. This is a little more realistic. The firms have different cost structures. This is easier to work with when firms have identical cost structures. But the bottom line, supply does get flatter as you add more firms and approaches a horizontal if you have lots of firms. This is a discussion about short-run market supply curves, which are the horizontal sum of marginal cost curves. This is the marginal cost curve for all these firms.